Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel where we review anything and everything. And today we are getting into another little golden book, but this time we're getting into 5 books. This was a package deal and it came just like this. Sorry, the package is a little bit beat up because, I've been reading it with my kids. But it came with this sleeve, which lets you know all the books that come into it. It's an Avengers kind of themed book where you have one book that's all the Avengers and 4 books that are 4 of the individual Avengers, save for Thor. And in this case, they're kind of including Spiderman to be a part of it. And so you have these individual heroes in the Avengers book. And here you can see the sleeve mentioning the characters, the Avengers, Captain America, Hulk, Iron Man, and Spider-Man. And here on the back of one of the books is depicting, some of other superhero books, including this is the Avengers one. It's including the Spider-Man one that's in here, the Hulk one that's in here. So maybe these same books were all sold separately, and this is just a collection that they put them together. I don't know because I only saw it like this in this collection form. But yeah, it was actually a pretty good value. I definitely want to say that it came in under $15 for 5 books, which I think is pretty good. I really like these books. Just showing more of other books that you can get that are, not inside this set. So this makes me think that they're, these were originally individual books, not a part of the collection. But anyway, let me flip them right side up, I should say. And I finished my thought that I was saying was that I think that these books are great value because I think the golden books, the way they're done is just very, very smart. They give you great stories, easy to read for younger kids, a lot of content that kids can grow with. I feel that whether a kid is reading them at 4 years old, if your kid is reading at that age, or whether your kid is like 7 years old, I still think it's still considered appropriate for that age range. Like, it still will be fun for them. They'll still enjoy it. And it's great if you're reading it to your kid and they're like even younger than that, after 3 years old, 2 years old, and they're reading it to them. The illustrations is enough, and the color, and the details, the colors, like all of that, the pictures, the artwork, all of it is great that the kids could just view it and look at it while you're reading them the story. So this one right here, Spider-Man, we'll start with. It's pretty much a general adventure. And most of these carry on with this kind of similar pace of when it comes to the superhero themes, and how they do it differently than some of the other books is, obviously, since these aren't coming from a movie, what they generally do in almost all of them is they depict the hero, whether it's his creation, his origin, and whether it's how he got his power, or maybe how he's viewed by the world. And we'll kind of jump into Captain America a little bit later, and they'll say, yeah, he's this, he's that, all these kind of things. They do show his origin though, but generally speaking, they show the character's origin. They kind of show a little run through of that character's powers, what they can do, obviously their secret identity if you have one. All the person, like I said, all their abilities. Here they're showing about his web shooters. Then they go into the things that he does, obviously in terms of helping people, different type of crimes that he'll do. So here he's stopping these bank robbers. They'll later on start getting into him here they're going to go into him saving people from buildings. Later on, they're going to go into his specific enemies. And that's kind of the setup. So here they're still doing more feats of where he's using his powers, things like that. And then they go into him fighting his enemies. So that's generally the layout of it, is introduce his introduce his origin, then his power set, then using his powers to do amazing feats, then him fighting his enemies. And that's the layout of pretty much all these superhero books here, which is nice that they have this kind of consistent layout. Here Spider-Man fights off his various top tier enemies, or his rogues gallery, finishing off with Green Goblin, and then finishing off with him saving the day. And Captain America is the same way. We'll breeze through it real quick. I'm not going to go through all of them, but just to kind of breeze through it. So here it's just talking about pretty much, what he represents. Captain America, a symbol. Now, if I'm not mistaken, with the Captain America one, it doesn't introduce him getting his powers in the beginning. No, it doesn't. Oh, yeah. So this one just kind of goes off of who he is, what he represents, then goes into his power set, like I mentioned before. Then it goes into, okay, you see him using shield. Okay, so in this one, they do it in reverse. The origin story with Spider-Man came first of how he got his powers, then his power feat. This one started with what Captain America represents, then his power set, and then his origin. So it does it a little differently in that regards. And that's it. Now, Captain America doesn't really have, he has enemies, but for whatever reason, they chose not to give him any specific enemies in his book. So his book is actually done a little differently, where the rest of them actually are more done similar to Spider-Man. Now, because of that reason, I definitely want to go through a few more of these just to kind of show the flow of it. So Iron Man, you know, just kind of gives his introduction at first, gives who he is. Now, keep in mind with Iron Man, he's not, he didn't get his powers from some kind of experiment, so they don't really have to address it like that. They just got to show that he's a tinkerer and likes to build things and he's whatever, and now you see him building up his armor. Then they go into his power set, so that's kind of, you could say his origin is just giving his background of who he is and what he does. Here you have, it starts going to his power set, like I said, his boot jets, repulsor rays, incredible strength. Then they go into introducing his enemies shortly afterwards. So here, Titanium Man, Whiplash, the Mandarin, Fang Fang Foom, one who is normally, you know, they definitely didn't put in the cinematic universe. But yes, one who's a classic for him, but is usually often never seen. Living Laser, Unicorn. I never heard of those two, but nonetheless, they show him defeat them, and then he wraps up and saves the day. So this one is a little more in line with the way that the Spider-Man was, as I mentioned, where, you know, you set up the origin. I'm just going to run through all of them at this point because there's only two more left. So you have where it introduces the Hulk. You know, he's incredible. He's all these great things. Then comes his origin, how he got created, similar to the way the Spider-Man layout was. Then afterwards, it's going to start showing him, showing off his feats of strength. Here, it's not making it in bold of what he does in terms of how they said with repulsors and this and that with Iron Man, but nonetheless, you see him using his strength here. You see him using his leg muscles here. You see him using his super clap here. Using some more of his strength feats and him fighting like the military. And then now they go into his enemy set, Abomination, Rhino. You got the leader. And I want to apologize also that sometime when I'm looking at the book over the camera, I don't see if I got everything in frame that very much, or at least, you know, for you guys to see it. So I apologize if I haven't had everything in frame while I've been reviewing this. Zap, one of his other enemies. Zax, I'm sorry. Absorbing Man, another one of his classic enemies that's been around for a long time. This is the Circus of Crime. And mentioning how, you know, sometimes he helps other people, such as the Avengers. So, you know, in his book, it actually shows that he's a part of a bigger group. And saying that Hulk's the strongest one is. So this one's interesting because it finishes off, it has the same traditional layouts as the Spider-Man, but finishes off showing that he's actually a part of that group. You know, I don't know why they took that direction, but, you know, that's fine. It still has that kind of general layout as like the Spider-Man. And the Avengers one obviously is going to be a little different. So the Avengers says like, hey, this is the group of the Avengers, introducing like just a full spread of all the characters they have on it. But and as mistaken earlier, Spider-Man's not actually, you know, in the book with the Avengers. From what I can remember, I don't want to see him pop up later and then I'd be like, oh, by the way, like he is in Avengers. But this is the Avengers layout. And so a few of these books here, 3 of them are, have this layout other than Thor. So it's kind of funny. They actually could have included a Thor book, but maybe they figured, people want to have Spider-Man in there, which I thought was a good book anyway. So you get the Avengers spread to introduce you to who they all are at first, as far as a full spread. Then comes introducing the individual characters. So they're not going to really go into power set here. You would get that from the individual books, but here they kind of just give a brief of what that character is, what they represent, maybe a little bit on the powers, but not greatly on their powers. Iron Man's introduced next. Just saying Iron Man wears armor. It allows him to fly, fire powerful repulsor rays. Just giving you a little brief of his power set and who he is. So they're not going into full depth like their individual books, but it gives you an idea. Thor and his abilities to control the weather. Hulk and his super strength. And then they go into them fighting their battles. Now you introduce them. You're not going to you introduce the characters. You introduce a little bit of their powers. Now you go into fighting their battles. They're fighting Hydra here, fighting the Wrecker crew. And in this case, most of them are all fighting groups. Loki, but also with the other Frost Giants. So it's a group battle. Obviously, Ultron and his many, versions of himself. You see some other versions of him there and here flying around. So it's all about the group battle. Bring him to the Vault, which is the high tech or high level prison for super villains. And then here, it just shows like a generic battle taking place in the background, which, we could assume is maybe, I don't know, the Chitauri or something like that. But just saying like, hey, they'll be around to stop any kind of thing or threat that's, whatever, because they're the Avengers. Avengers Assemble. And so, yeah, that's a nice book with its layout being a little different. But generally speaking, you see the layout, you see how it goes. I like these books. I like that they have a structured layout to them. I think they're easy reading for the kids, for the adults to read to the kids. A lot of nice detailed illustrations, powers, all this kind of fun stuff to get kids into superheroes and stuff like that. So I actually think that it's a great setup, great for the price. I definitely recommend it. And yeah, so here you go, Golden Book, Super Marvel Superheroes, 5 books in one. I recommend it. Catch you guys in the next video.